Welcome back, Focus Learner, to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely massive. We're looking at a monumental 1,400-year history that literally wired the modern global society we live in today, Islamic civilization. I mean, think about it. From its origins in the harsh Arabian desert to its incredible impact on global culture and science, it's a story we just have to explore. So let's dive right in and see how this incredible transformation actually happened.
Okay, let's dive into this. 2 billion. Yeah, you heard that right. 2 billion. It is just a staggering figure. Today, roughly 2 billion followers of Islam live across literally every single continent. But to truly understand how a movement reaches that kind of sheer modern scale, we really have to go back to the 7th century to find that initial spark that started the whole thing.
So, here's how we're going to map out this incredible ripple effect. First, we'll look at the origins of Islam, then expansion and the caliphates. Third, the Islamic Golden Age. Fourth, the Sunni and Shia branches. And finally, Islam in the modern world.
Section 1. The origins of Islam.
Right, so our story begins around the year 610 CE with a man named Muhammad in the city of Mecca. The revelations he received, which, were later compiled into the Quran, centered on this really strict belief in one God, along with compassion, justice, and moral responsibility. But here's the thing. Mecca was this bustling, polytheistic trade hub at the time. So, as you can imagine, this new message was deeply disruptive, and it immediately faced some pretty intense pushback from local leaders. And this brilliantly illustrates just how tough those early days were. Because of that intense opposition, Muhammad and his early followers actually had to migrate to Medina in 622 CE. It was a pivotal survival tactic. This event, known as the Hijra, is a massive turning point. In fact, it's so fundamental that it officially marks year 1 of the Islamic calendar. In Medina, Muhammad built a really cohesive community, and by 630 CE, they were able to return to Mecca peacefully. By the time of Muhammad's death in 632, this new faith had already swept across much of the Arabian Peninsula.
Section 2. Expansion and the caliphates.
So, with Muhammad's passing, the community obviously needed new leadership to guide them, both politically and spiritually. The people who stepped up into this role were known as caliphs. Caliph literally means successor, and these successors would go on to become the core architects of the massive territorial expansions that were just about to unfold. And the geographic growth that followed happened at an absolutely breathtaking pace. We're talking the first wave of a massive ripple effect. First, you had the Rashidun Caliphate, which pushed out of Arabia and expanded into Persia, the Middle East, and North Africa. Then, the Umayyads took over, and in just 90 years, they stretched Islamic rule all the way from the Iberian Peninsula in Europe across to Central Asia. Finally, the Abbasid Caliphate came along and set up their capital in Baghdad in 750 CE. That move transformed Baghdad into a major global center of learning, which perfectly sets the stage for our next era. Section 3. The Islamic Golden Age. Now, what's really interesting about this is that from the 8th to the 13th centuries, scholars in the Islamic world weren't just passively studying, they were innovating across a massive spectrum of disciplines. To give you just one quick example, our modern word algebra comes directly from al-Jabr, which was a mathematical system pioneered by scholars during this exact era. But they didn't just stop at math. Not at all. Astronomy, medicine, chemistry, philosophy, literature, and brilliant architecture, all of it flourished simultaneously. So, why does this era matter so much to all of us today? Well, because these Islamic scholars essentially ran a massive rescue and evolution mission for classical global knowledge. They gathered up ancient Greek, Persian, and Indian works, translated them all into Arabic, and then used them as a launchpad for their own brilliant insights. Honestly, much of the ancient world's wisdom survived only because of this vibrant intellectual hub.
Section 4. Sunni and Shia branches.
Historically, early differences of opinion over who should rightfully lead the community after Muhammad's death resulted in 2 distinct branches: Sunni Islam, which is the largest branch worldwide today, and Shia Islam. Yet, despite those historical divergences over leadership, it's really important to note that both branches remain firmly united by the exact same fundamental core beliefs: the belief in one God, the teachings of the Quran, and the acceptance of Muhammad as the final prophet. Section 5. Islam in the modern world. Remember those 2 billion followers we talked about earlier? Well, while the religion was born in the sands of Saudi Arabia, Today, the largest Muslim populations are actually in places like Indonesia, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. It really showcases how the faith wove itself into distinct cultural fabrics, stretching far, far beyond its Middle Eastern origins, reaching right across Asia and the rest of the globe.
So the crucial point is, when we look back at this 1400-year timeline, we're actually looking through a dual lens. On one hand, for Muslims, this is the profound history of a living faith and a deep spiritual tradition. But simultaneously, for global historians, it's this incredibly dynamic subject of academic study constantly being pieced together using archaeological evidence, historical documents, and contemporary accounts.
Which brings us to a final, really fascinating thought. We've traced a line from a single voice in 7th century Mecca, through vast, expanding empires, into a golden age of science, all the way to a modern global community of 2 billion people. So, how does a movement that started with just one man in 7th century Arabia continue to so fundamentally shape our modern religious, cultural, and scientific world today? It's a pretty amazing question to ponder. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.